Welcome back to the show. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. Hope you all had a fantastic Christmas and a fantastic Boxing Day. I'll drink to that. Absolutely superb to see you both on. First of all, happy Christmas to League Judges. And last of all, I've got to say this, a big up to the legend that is Graham Brooks. And welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to share a platform with you two legends, so I'm looking forward to it tonight.
Yeah, man. Listen, it's great to see you, man. And I've missed you. It's been weird it's been a while since us three have been together. So I was looking forward to tonight. And it's always good to speak about an Arsenal victory, League Judges. I must admit, after tonight's result, everybody has played and we still sit top of the tree. Excuse the pun for Christmas, Judges. But I will say this going into that game, I know you were nervous. I know a few people were
Yeah,
nervous because we didn't quite know what to expect in terms of
yeah.
how we'd react from a World Cup. But we didn't disappoint, particularly in that second half, mate. What do you make of it?
No, I have to say that I was nervous before the game, and at half time I was even more nervous. Like, you know what I mean? I was worried, and just not because we weren't playing well or we weren't creating chances or whatever. I just felt, it's one of those games, when you're going to get one of those games and things ain't going to go well right for us. A little bit of a dodgy penalty, but when you look back on it, it probably is a penalty. But all those sort of things were going in there. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what it was like when you was in the bars at half time and all that. Everybody I was talking to was going, we'll turn this around, and I'm thinking, I don't know. And then, I think two key things happened. The Ramsdale save when Antonio goes through could have made it 2-0. That would have been a mighty climb after that, I think. And then, the missed shot from from Odegaard, which goes down as an assist, straight into the path of Saka. Great finish. Game over then. Like, I knew then that we was going to go on and win the game, and I thought we played well. Funny enough, and I said this on a show previously, I got home, I thought, I watched Match of the Day, but in the end, I don't know why Match of the Day didn't Sky Plus for some unknown reason. So
Same as me. Same as me.
Same
I had
as
to
you,
watch it on
like,
catch up. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know why that didn't happen. So I was right peeved off with that. But anyway, so I had the extended highlights on Amazon, and I watched that, and I realised then why I was worried. I don't really know, because we didn't half play well. We knocked the ball about really, really well. All we done was different in the second half was just we stepped it up just a little bit, stepped up the pace a little bit, moved the ball a bit quicker, and we took our chances. And the biggest thing for me, I think that I think everybody was sort of saying it, was Eddie's goal was fantastic. The build up for it, the turn, the finish, was everything about that goal was brilliant. And that was for me a big thing, because I ain't gonna lie, you know what I mean. Like, as soon as things weren't going right, let's get Vieira on, let's do that. Like, I'm just an ordinary fan that, think doom and gloom. He's not quite good enough. He done something in the first half. He just had to lay it back, and he overplayed, and you think, But I desperate for him to score. I was desperate, because I think it's so important that he did. And when he got that goal, that I was going mad, and I'm so pleased for him. And fantastic. Everybody's going Eddie at the end, So I was really, really happy about that. And all in all, a good day. I've got to say that Spurs dropping a couple of points earlier on in the day is always good, and I have to say, I've watched a little bit of the Man City game today, and they're good. They've got good players. I'm not going to lie and all that, but I still think we're playing better than them at the moment. I really do. I think that if we can just sign a couple of players, I think we've got a real good chance. I don't think they're streets above us like people seem to think that they are after what I've seen. And the greatest thing is I've had all my Spurs family here, over the last day or so, and off I trot to, give you a little picture of the scene. Off I go to the Emirates. I'll have a nice time at the Emirates, but come on, West Ham. I say, come on, West Ham. You hate West Ham, don't you? So anyway, when I come back, they're sitting here, aren't they? No, sorry, they weren't sitting here because I got in very, very late. Anyway, the next morning, Oh, Arsenal, good side, aren't they? Oh, bit impressed with them last night. Like, oh dear, you know. I thought, oh yeah, I liked it. So that's what I'm happy about. Like, you know, the neutrals and not the neutrals, because they're certainly not neutrals. Spurs fans, they're worried. Must be doing something right, guys. Must be doing something right.
We're relevant again, and people are talking about us. People are scared of us, and people are starting to worry, in my opinion. Now, Graham, I want to come and strip it back a little bit, because obviously I want to get your opinions on the game. But because I haven't spoke to you for a while, I want to ask you a couple of questions about this Arsenal side this year and why you think it's different to previous years, mate. Because I believe personally that there's been huge progress. I think on the pitch it's clear to see, but certainly for me, the new signings have been a bit part of that. But I've actually seen a lot more than just signing new players for me. There's been a lot more in terms of progress. So just wanted to bit of an open question to you really about what you've made of Arsenal this season and why you think it's been going so well, Graham.
I think you touched on it first of all there, Dan. The signings have made a massive difference. And I think if you look at what we had last season, I think the bones were there. The pieces were falling into place. Probably shouldn't have said the bones were there. That's a funny sort of statement to make. But what I'm saying is that it was in place. We just needed to add one or two extra layers, I thought. You've got to remember, we had a fantastic run last year. We dropped off the cliff at the end with the injuries to key players. So I think this season, adding one or two key players, I think the fact that we've been fortunate that we haven't had injuries. I think the other thing is we're not playing in the Champions League, and we've been able to rest players when we've had the European campaign, because I think a lot of the top teams have been playing extra games, squeezing in Champions League games even quicker than normal. So they've played extra games at high level where they've had to play their full team every 3 days. I think that has been an advantage to us. But I think that what Mikel has put together and the way he's coached the team, it was already in place going into this season. It just needed adding one or two extra layers. He did that with the sign of Gabriel Jesus, who's added massively to the team. Zinchenko, who plays that inverted role so well. A real masterstroke to move Ben White to right back. And he's not a right back. People say he's a right back. What I see him is he's almost like somebody who breaks the play up when we're out of possession, and he helps us build the play when we're in possession. So he's almost like a transition stopper and also a play progressor is what I call him. He's almost like a fullback, midfielder and attacker rolled into one. I think he's massively important to this team, and his performance again on against West Ham went very much under the radar for a lot of people. I thought he was one of our best players on the night, and he was hugely instrumental in breaking up play. He made one or two very useful defensive contributions when our centre-backs were in trouble, and he was heavily involved in the key third goal. So I think what Mikel has got is the team now really structured really well, on the ball, off the ball, the way they build up, either a 2-3-5 shape or a 3-2-5 shape. Players understand their roles. Players understand where they've got to be. They're so well structured in possession, but when we lose possession, we're so well structured they can get back into place out of possession. And I think that's a massive difference to Arsenal. I think in the past, we've never been coached that well, where when we've lost the ball, the gaps have been so wide between attack and defence, and teams have been able to run through us. Added to that, we've got two centre-halves, one who's very front-footed, who attacks the ball, one centre-half who's very good on recoveries. So I think the defence is very strong. When you've got players who are very good on recoveries, who've got pace, that helps at the back. Ramsdale is key to the whole thing, the way he's able to kick out. And also the way he commands his box. I think he's a massive plus as well. I just think every part of the team now, but when he puts his full strength side out, I don't see any weakness in the team. And I know we talk about Jesus' injury as being a worry going into that West Ham game, but I think Nketiah is, I think, an able deputy. And I think he proved on the other night when he came in, his work rate off the ball was absolutely sensational. People I wasn't in the stadium on the other night like you two guys. I watched it at home, but I was really pissed off at half time reading the Twitter comments where we were losing 1-0 and it was Eddie's fault. And I think James on the tactical show made a brilliant point that yet to be convinced whether Eddie's at the level to take us to a league title, but certainly he doesn't deserve a lot of the criticism he gets. And when he's come in, he's never let us down. He's scored something like 11 goals in 11 games at the Emirates in all competitions. He scored 6 in his last 9 in the Premier League. He was reasonably good at the end of last season. You have to remember that. So I think I do think we need to be active in the window, but I don't see them looking at replacing Jesus as an out-and-out forward, and we've seen that in the business they're looking to do. So in answer to your question, I just think the way Mikel's got us now structured, he added layers to the team. I think everyone now in the home games at the stadium, I wasn't there the other night when you two guys were, but I understand that when we went 1 down, the crowd, the energy from the crowd was instant to get the team back in the game. Everybody's buying into it. And so you got the energy from the team. I think the other good thing about the team this year, Dan, what's different this year is that when they go behind, they don't panic. They understand what they got to do in games, and they don't, they work out a way to win, and they keep going. The work rate on and off the ball, led by Martin Odegaard the other night, 7 ball recoveries he made in that game was sensational. And West Ham, we just smothered them, pressed them to death. And I always felt we would win the game, Lee, because West Ham could not, I think, sustain that defence for 90 minutes where everybody behind the ball trying to win the ball back with Antonio isolated up front, just looking to play on the counter-attack with only him up. They had played a number 10 who barely got over the halfway line. And I think that in the end, we just outrun them, were better physically, and just had better players. And we didn't panic. And in the end, we got our players up high. The other thing I said in the tactical show that I thought was key was I think Declan Rice was absolutely massive for West Ham. In that first half, he kept them in it with his defensive contributions. And in the second half, we turned the ball over from him twice. And the moment we took him out of the picture, we created 2 of our 3 goals.
Yeah,
so in answer to your question, I just think that Mikel has got the team structured really well. If those players stay fit and he can keep putting out his strongest 11, and albeit we don't lose Thomas Partey as well as Jesus, I think Partey's crucial to all this.
Yeah.
As you said in your AFTV interview, Dan, we have got a real top-class midfield 3 there. Martin Odegaard, and again, James made a brilliant point. Is he a 10 or is he 8? He creates like a 10, but he works like a number 8. So he is like 2 roles into one. And I think that's some of the reasons why this year we're better.
Listen, I want to bring up on that point, Lee, because it makes a nice little segue for that. Obviously, I brought it up and I said that this midfield trio is just special at the moment. And the reason I said that was because, a lot of people sit there and talk about Manchester City and Liverpool's midfield, and rightly so. The last couple of seasons, it's been superb. But I'm going to go out there and say that at the moment, I look at this collective as a 3, and I just think they all complement each other so well. And yesterday, you could have picked any of them and given them man of the match. I thought Xhaka was superb. I thought Partey was elite. And my God, how magnificent was Erdegaard. And I just think at the moment, judges, when these 3 are fit, it looks like we're going to win a game. I know Saka and Martinelli and the front 3 need to deserve a lot of credit because all of them were instrumental in at least one of, if not all 3 of the goals. But that midfield trio, like Graham rightly says, in the first half, Declan Rice actually played very well. Second half, we bullied him, and Paqueta hardly got a touch. Souček was just trying to do what Souček does, which is, let's be honest, try and find a tap-in or something on his head because he ain't got that much technical ability. I thought we absolutely outmuscled and bullied their midfield. And for me, that was a big, big reason as to why we won the game, Judge.
Yeah, well, listen, you know what I say about midfields. I think that's where you win and lose games. It's the engine room. And we totally dominated that midfield. But we get on top of all midfields at the moment. You're dead right what you're saying. It's not just that midfield. We dominated Liverpool's midfield, Tottenham's midfield. And I said this yesterday and I say it now. Arsenal's season changed a year ago on the 1st of January. We lost that game against Manchester City, but we went toe-to-toe with them and played them off the park. I know we didn't win the game, but we went like no other team's gone. And that was the start of what's gone on for me. It's the start of where it's all changed. And people laugh at me when I go, but we lost the game. But yeah, but we put down foundations and belief that day. And we always disappointed that we lost that game. But you're dead right. I've always been an Odegaard fan. I quite like him. He's now producing. he's now producing. But when he wasn't producing, and this is the big thing, and the big thing for me, he was contributing with his work rate and working hard, chasing back, and that. And again, yesterday, his work rate, as you both alluded to, was fantastic yesterday again. And he's a proper leader on the pitch. I know he may not be the leader with the mouth and everything like that. That's fine, but he sets the tone. He works hard. He's the trigger. He's the trigger. When he goes, then they all go, and we hunt the ball back. Now that has been, I can tell you that now. That has been worked on the training ground, week in, week out, day in, day out to do that. There's your trigger point. You go here, you go there. And Graham makes a great point there. Declan Rice got caught out twice from Partey and Saka. They nicked the ball off him, got round, and that's where the goals come from. But we can do that to any team. That is what they do is one. I watched it. You know, when you sit there and you actually, I've watched a couple of games, you know, because I got a little bit bored over one night I couldn't sleep, so I watched a bit of Manchester. What they do is they go into things and they stretch other midfields and things like that. They stretch it. Uligar goes in there, stretches it. Then what happens is that Xhaka will then make another big run. It leaves a big gap for someone to come in. That might be Jesus dropping into that thing and then going from there. Now they've got to change it a little bit with Eddie up front because he doesn't do that. And I felt that was maybe one of the reasons we didn't do well for the first half, because I don't know if you noticed it, 4 or 5 times they could have played it into Eddie and they didn't, because if that was Jesus, they would have done it. So they just tinkered with it a little bit. And in the second half, I don't know whether it was picked up or whatever. Look, trust him in there. You've got to trust him. You've got to believe in that he's going to do that, and they've done it. But that midfield is really, really good. What I like about it also, and I look at Manchester City's midfield as well, it's powerful. It's not lightweight. You know what I mean? It can play, but it's powerful. It can get what I wouldn't say bully, and I think that's the wrong word to use, but it can overpower midfields. And you look at that West Ham midfield yesterday, it's not a poor midfield. It's not a poor midfield by any shape of the imagination, but we dominated it from start to finish. And I tell you what, I've got to say this, and I've got to bring it up. A player I felt contributed yesterday without, he wasn't even on the park, and that was Zinchenko. He'd come on to do his warm-up in the second half. Now, you wouldn't have seen this, Graham, because you was like watching it on telly. You must have noticed this.
That's right by me. Yeah, right by me.
He's come running on, do his warm-up, and he got that crowd going. He went up to it, come on, like, give it all. And that, I thought, was sensational. He brought that into his game as well. We ran on and done everything there. I've never seen that before, guys, from anybody in a football from Arsenal, like going on at half-time and rallying the crowd. And it worked. I'm not saying it got us the result, but do you know what I mean, Dan? It was a little bit of a lull yesterday.
It was amazing.
There was a little bit of nervousness from fans, and he just inspired everybody by just doing that. Fantastic. And we was 1-0 down when he done that, Dan. You know, and what's a thing to do? And the contributions of it all there. And I've got to say this now, and people have took a little bit of a mickey out of him a little bit, But El Neni come on in the last seconds of that game, and listen, no one's going to like that. You know what I mean? Like, ego thing, I ain't coming on and everything like that. But he went on there, ran on and ran off. But he celebrated that win like he'd been on there for 90 minutes. That tells me there's a bond with these players. Don't ever underestimate that. You know what I mean? Like, that bond you have to have. And whatever we do and all that, El Neni does a fantastic job in there, because he's got to have a mental side of things that a lot of players wouldn't have, guys. You know what I mean? I've been a sub before, and I've sulked and whatever. It takes a special personality to be like that. And when he comes on, he does his bits. But I'm telling you now, and when we got that Eddie goal, just finally, what I loved was all the substitutes piling on as well. Now, not walking off because they're not happy or they're not starting. They're all in it together. And that won't win you the title, but it'll help. It'll help, when everybody's pulling in the right direction. And that's fantastic. So credit to the coaching staff, credit to the manager that he's got that. And that's what you want. Everybody is pulling in the right direction, whether they're playing or not. And, that's him looking at players and saying, yeah, I need this player can do that. And it was fantastic, and I thought it was a fantastic night's football. Got to say that. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I
Lee,
think you're talking facts there, Lee.
Yeah, just quickly, Dan, just touching on what Lee said there. I think what you've got to credit Arteta, right, for two things. One, that he's got that bond with the players, because he has to keep the players who are not in the side fully part of the process, and he's doing that, making them feel part of the team. And the other thing is, I'd love to hear what he said at half time, because I think when we went in 1-0 down, it's only the third time this season, Dan, we've been behind in a Premier League game this season. And but I think he just reminded the players of what they are and what they do well and what they need to do, not to panic. And I think he sent them out just telling them to what they do well and what you need to do. And I don't think the manager panics. And I think now he's a lot more calmer than I thought when he first came in. He was very animated, at times, but now he's calmer, I think. And I think those two factors, the crowd, as Lee says, Zinchenko getting the crowd up, but also the energy of the crowd, which feeds to the players. I've noticed that when I've been in the stadium. And also Arteta, the way he's managing the squad, managing the players. And I think a really good halftime team talk, setting them back out, just emphasise to them what they do well. And you need to start doing this. Because I thought in the first half we played well, Lee. People were saying we weren't playing well. I thought we were playing all right. I think the one or two small details I thought first half. Yeah. I thought that we were a bit unlucky. The 50-50 decisions went against us, and they were all, in my opinion, the right decisions to go against us, but it was 50-50. I thought the other thing about Eddie in the first half, I thought he was coming deeperly. I don't know if you noticed it. He was sort of like playing at the top of a diamond with Partey at the base and Odegaard and Xhaka either side. But he was coming deep, right? But the centre half wasn't coming out with him. And I thought that he had time, to turn and run. He was coming deep, receiving the ball and laying it off. I wanted to see him turn and run at the defence or move somebody out of position to play someone. It's almost like they were, Saka and Martinelli were playing from out to in as the two strikers in that first half. And I thought second half, Eddie was more in the box. I just thought we pushed them back. And in the end, they just caved in, West Ham. They couldn't cope with the press. And we just got on top of them. And once we scored the first goal, I thought they collapsed. But I did see that coming. I just thought what they were doing, West Ham, was unsustainable. And I'm just so pleased Eddie got that goal. It almost feels like a burden lifted, doesn't it?
Big thing. I'll tell you also, which was a thing I noticed yesterday, Dan, and probably a lot of people wouldn't have noticed it. There was a fantastic cross coming from West Ham players, went right to the back post. Ben White won it in the air, and Saliba cleared it, and it was like, what's the word I'm looking for? It was dealt with so easily and comfortably, but it was a difficult situation. Now, last season and years before, I don't want to go too bad into it, but if it was Bellerin and Mustafi there, it would have been panic stations and they might have got a goal from it or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But I watched it and I went, wow, that was a class bit of interception from White. And then Saliba come and mopped it up. Probably a lot of people wouldn't have noticed it and all that, but it's proper defending. Proper defending. So when we could have been 1-0 down or 2-0 down with that. It was a fantastic cross. It come in like it took Ramsdale out. Ben White got it. Saliba and I mopped it up. And I just thought, I turned around to my mate and said, "Look at that. We ain't used to that. We're not used to that." But we're getting used to it now, So, all credit. Everybody played their part in that game yesterday, and people have said, I put on there as a massive statement. Someone said, actually, my brother said it to me, because my nephew has been staying here the last couple of days, and he was talking about it. Oh, massive statement win you put against West Ham that are down the bottom and all that, and I said, yeah. Forget about massive where West Ham were. That was a massive result and play for us because we'd lost Jesus. It was 5-6 weeks before our last game. We had momentum. We didn't know what it was going to be like. We went 1-0 down. Things weren't going for us. We responded. Yes, that was a big, big night for us. And I tell you what, I feel a lot more confident going into Brighton now than I would have done if we'd have drawn that game or lost that game. I felt we got our mojo. It was all right. You know what I mean? I now going into, you know, when I was a little bit nervous, but I was looking forward to it, but nervous. You know what I mean? Like, but now, whatever happens against Brighton, we could lose that game. I'm not saying that we can't, but I tell you what, I'm going to Brighton confident.
You can't win though, Lee, because we would say that's a statement win, that it's shut everybody up. They've put us on 8 p.m. so they can all laugh at us, all those things that we hear. But if we would have lost that game, you know, would it have been, it was only West Ham, or would it have been, you know, Arsenal have messed it up? You're never going to win with the media. You're never going to win with these haters.
No,
mate. You've just got to
exactly.
allow them to do it because we're relevant and they hate it. We're getting on everybody's tits, mate. We are the annoying club that everyone hates at the moment, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I do shows, as you know, with a lot of different fans now, and this season's been beautiful for me. Absolutely beautiful. Every time I'm on, I've got everybody going, yeah, you're a bit annoying, Arsenal, weren't you? We liked it when it was all Arteta out. We liked you when you were negative. It was good. It was right. It was right. Yeah, you don't like us now because we're winning, and you're scared of us, and you're worried. And long may it continue, man. Listen, you've both put up unbelievable points there in relation to why we're where we are. I think the biggest one for me was the belief in the togetherness that Lee was talking about, and yourself also, Graham. And the togetherness, you've mentioned El Neni, you've mentioned the subs, you've mentioned Zinchenko. Absolutely bang on. He came up, and I was thinking, wow, okay, I've never seen that really going some. Now, I think the biggest compliment I can pay this season for the manager and the regime, to be fair, is the progress off the pitch is now starting to show on it, Graham. And that's where I think the biggest turning point has been. All of this removing of culture. Lee's even brought it up with Mustafis and Bellerins. Somebody in the chat was saying Mustafi and Kolasinac. We don't see that anymore. When those players were in the tunnel, we were like, oh, no, Bellerin. Oh, Mustafi. Oh, Kolasinac is in today. Now it ain't that. You've just said it yourself. That first 11, there ain't a weakness at the moment. So for me, that's absolutely key. But I think it's only right to talk about two players, both again on the score sheet, that have been magnificent in our front three this season. And that's Saka and Martinelli. Now, Lawless, everybody knows from my channel, from West Ham Fan TV, went pretty viral on Box to Box with Turkish, saying that Saka needs to bulk up a bit. Well, yesterday he bulked up a hell of a lot in one night because he put rice on his ass. So for me, I think it was a little bit unfair. I think that's one of Saka's strengths. I think he gets kicked to pieces. I thought he got fouled against Upamecano in England, which was why he went down and actually scored from Tchouameni. I thought that was a foul. I don't think that was him not having strength. I also believe, Graham, that one of the things he seems to do, which I don't know how he gets away with all the time and does it all the time, it seems to be unpredictable still, even though you kind of know he's going to do it, is where he just circles defenders and just shrugs them off and just turns them. That to me is fantastic to watch. And of course, I have to big up Martinelli on the other side. I know the goal was a bit lucky and Fabianski will be frustrated that he allowed that go in his near post. But the work rate from this guy is sensational. Both of these players are the two most exciting to watch in an Arsenal shirt. And some might even say two of the most exciting to watch in the league. Two youngsters that have, for me, an unbelievably high ceiling. And we look at legends, Graham, like Robert Pires, Freddie Ljungberg, Alexis Sanchez, players that have played in those positions. And I have to say, their ceiling is as high, if not higher, than some of those legends. This is an exciting time to be a Gooner. But for those two kids, let's hope we sign them up ASAP for a long, long time because I'm a massive fan of the pair of them, Graham.
Yeah, look, they're both 21, Dan. They've got 19 goal contributions between them this year in something like 15 Premier League games, which is unbelievable numbers for two young 21-year-olds. And we forget, I think, at times how young they are. And it's funny you mentioned that because I was talking about the way Saka does that circle. It's almost like, you know, like when you watch, and I'm not putting him in the same level as Lionel Messi. You know, when you used to watch Messi, you knew what he was going to do, but you just couldn't stop him. And I think Saka, in his own way, is a bit like that. You just see him doing it. Then they know what he's going to do, but they can't stop him. He can, of course, go inside. He can go outside. He can use his left and he can use his right foot. So he has got all the abilities you want in a footballer. And I think in the last year, he's grown now into one of the most respected players, I think, young players in world football. And the fact that in that World Cup, he was as good as he was and he got into most people's best 11s for the World Cup just shows what a young talent we got on our hands. Same with Gabriel Martinelli. You know, I think We got two fantastic young kids here, and we really do need to tie them down on long-term deals. I mean, Martinelli has obviously signed a contract now, hasn't he? But Saka is the key one. I think just coming back to your original point there, Dan, and again, it's what Mikel did really well was he not only did he get out of the dead wood, but he got out the players who thought they were bigger than the club, and people were upset when Aubameyang went, criticised him for what he did over Aubameyang, but he's been proved right again, hasn't he? He's got those players out because he wants players who are buying into the culture, who don't think they're bigger than the club. And these players are all, now on the same page, so to speak. And I think that's a credit again to the manager. He took a real, not a risk, but he was a young manager. He won an FA Cup, but he was basically under a lot of pressure. And he made that big decision last year with Aubameyang. But I think he's seen what good young kids he had coming through. I thought it was great that Arsene Wenger was in the stadium to see it last night, lads. And I don't know if you knew that he was in the stadium last night. Obviously, the players didn't know. But he would have seen two young Hal M products there come through, sort of doing the business last night, as well as Martinelli. And as I said on the Tactical Insight show this week, he actually gave his the debut to Nketiah 5 years ago when he was 18 in the Europa League tie. And then he brought him on against Norwich, didn't he, in the Carabao Cup, and he scored two goals. I can remember, bless him, Claude. You remember Claude? I mean, that interview he gave after the Norwich game where he really did praise Eddie. I'd love to know what Claude thinks of this Arsenal team. Sadly he's not around to see it, of course. Really miss Claude, his interviews on AFTV. But Wenger would have seen there two young lads, Saka and Nketiah, who were very much part of the young players coming through in his final years at the club. And I think, we have got a lot of young talent now, and we got an attacking four, because they are an attacking four, in my opinion. And that's just who's up top, and obviously Nketiah fitting in. But we've got like Martinelli on one side, Saka on the other, and I include Martin Odegaard now, Lee, as part of that attacking four.
Yeah.
Because I know, Dan, you wanted to see him add goals to his game. He's had his 6 this year. He's got 4 assists, but also his goal contributions, apart from the goal contributions, the big chances he creates, as well as the work rate. So, I think this attacking four is real top quality we've got now. And I think that, Man City, as Lee says, look phenomenal, really. We always knew they were, and they've got Haaland now. So, but I think we're playing, Lee's 100% right. I think we're playing just as good a football as them. And if we can get through these next 4 or 5 fixtures, I look at those tough fixtures coming up, Dan. Brighton away, then we got Newcastle, then we got Tottenham, Man United, haven't we? So
yeah,
they are massively difficult fixtures, 4 fixtures there. And I don't know what you would want for a return from those fixtures, but if we can carry on playing our football and get results in those games.
12 points.
That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But yeah, I just think, coming back to your point, Dan, yeah, we've got 2 exceptional young talents there. And I think, and coming back to your first point, yeah, he has cleared out the deadwood and those players who were not buying into the culture.
And also, which people are forgetting about, we've got Smith Rowe to come back as well, who's a talent as well. Got top goal scorer for us last season, or was up there last, joint top goal scorer. So we haven't missed his goals this season, which just shows you how well we've done.
The goals are shared around, Lee, aren't they?
Yeah, been shared around.
Goals by committee. That's been important.
Yeah,
goals by committee.
That's a great thing. And do you know what? When someone like Dan Lawless has said about Saka, right? I ain't got a problem with that, because it tells me that he hasn't really watched Saka that much, because I don't, I don't watch Declan Rice that much because he plays at West Ham, you know what I mean? But he's come to everybody sort of like watched him at the World Cup and has gone, he is a good player, and he is very, very good, We've been knowing that for 2 years. We've been banging on the drum out. I have been, and I know we all have, actually good. That he's an exceptional talent. He's one of the best young players that I've ever seen. For a year he carried Arsenal when they weren't a very good side. He's now not carrying Arsenal. He's contributing with other players around him, and then I think he's getting better and better. But we've always known this. Other teams now and other fans are now starting to realise just how good he is, and it's bloody brilliant, isn't it? Long may it
continue, man.
Yeah, long may it continue. we've watched him a couple of years ago. I thought he was fantastic. We've all turned around and said, you know what, if he could add a few goals to his game, or he can add a few more assists to his game, what a player he's going to be. He's doing that now. He's adding goals to his game. He's getting assists, still taking the game by the scruff of the neck. I think that, you know, he's a sensational player, and I ain't got a problem when people like that say, "Oh, I don't think he's this and that," because they've not really. They don't know what we know, and that's how I look at it. I think he's, and I tell you what, you know, everybody knows that Martinelli's my favourite player, but he's a different sort of a player. He's more pacey, stretching them more, and that, and then you've got the intricate stuff of Saka. What happens is it complements each other so well, and as well as Arsenal played yesterday, they were the two key components to that win.
What they do need is another point is they tactically they stretch the pitch because they hold the width. And you talked about the way the midfield operates, the way we get our number 8s high, and the way we dominate midfield. I think part of that success is because we've got two players who can hold the width, are very comfortable holding the width. I think back to Nicola Pepe. He couldn't quite do it when he was on that side that Saka was on. But we've got these two quality players. Not only are they great footballers and their goal contributions they give the team, but tactically they can be what Mikel needs them to be. They hold the width very well. As Lee says, Martinelli's the one who likes to dribble past a defender. Saka's more sort of like intricate, as you say, but they offer different qualities, and they can both switch sides. And as we've seen at parts this season, so yeah, you know, massive part of the success of the team this season. And we forget.
I think as well. You look at like the comparison there with Pepe. Everyone knew what he was going to do. So predictable. Everyone knew. We've already just mentioned that Messi and Mahrez and Salah and Robben, they've all been able to do exactly what Saka's doing. Pepe couldn't do that. You know, as much as I used to think he got a lot of unfair criticism at times, he was very predictable. And, you know, for me, you just see what the level of quality is when you can go from a Pepe to a Saka, how good he's been. I think Martinelli as well, like Lee says, it's really hard to pick between who your favourite is. And that's good. That's what you want. You want players like that. And for me, both of them have been unbelievable this season. And I think Jesus has been a massive factor of that. What was really good for me was that he wasn't there on Boxing Day against West Ham, and they still played absolutely phenomenally well with Eddie Nketiah. So that for me is superb to see.
The other thing, Dan, just coming back before we move on that point about Saka is that when Odegaard's on that right-hand side, if Odegaard goes out wide, Saka can come inside. The same with Martinelli. Martinelli can come inside when Tierney or Zinchenko goes up high, or even if Xhaka goes on the outside, Martinelli can come inside. And they're very good in combination play. And so we've got these combinations up high now with players playing in a structure who are very comfortable adjusting positions. And what we've seen over the last year, you talked about at the start of the show about what's different this year. I think that's part of it. You know, the evolution of the way up high, he gives the players the freedom to play they want to play, but they're still able to understand positionally when one player's in one position where they need to go. And then when they get into that position, they've got the freedom, if they're in the box, to do what they need to do. But I think they're very good in combinations, this team. And that goes in midfield, up high, and the way they defend as a unit. They defend from the front, Lee. You know, you love your defending, don't you?
Yeah.
They defend from the front in a 4-4-2. When they're out of possession, they're very strong off the ball now. And I've seen lots of Arsenal teams under Wenger. The way football's evolved now, you have to be strong off the ball. Wenger teams, as good as they were, particularly at the end, weren't great off the ball. No. This team is good on the ball and off the ball. And just coming back to that Declan Rice challenge we've talked about, Saka bodied him twice in that one moment to win that ball back. And that summed up everything about what the team now is off the ball, Dan.
And if 100%. You look at that Martinelli goal and then look at the third goal, Martinelli, as Graham quite rightly says, he hugs the line and then he sort of like gets it just on the edge of the 18-yard box, does the trick, scores the goal. When we get the goal for Eddie, he's inside inside the box, collects it, turns it round, plays it like in there. Now the defenders are thinking then, right, it's going to shift to the left, but it doesn't. It shifts to the right. That gives them a little bit of space. They're actually like being drilled so that, you know, you can go one way, you can go another. And what was good about it is like that West Ham was saying, right, we're keeping our shape here. We've got Martinelli now in a position where probably we want him in that little area like that. We ain't out wide. Tierney's coming, by the way, bombing down that left-hand side. Xhaka's then got the ball, but he turns it, brings it into Ben White, and it just takes that defence off balance. So it's good movement from Martinelli for both goals. And it was a couple of occasions, you know what I mean? And this is, not a criticism of Martinelli but he goes round the player easy, and then he made the wrong decision with his crosses and pass. When he gets that right, oh, my God, because I'll tell you on the other side, I'm going to say it now, Saka gets it right most times. Martinelli's not quite up to speed with that yet. Like, he's still learning that little bit. Like, but once he does, and I'll tell you another quick thing about them, that they get kicked.
Yes, they do. I was going to come on to that. They proper do. Both of them.
They get kicks and they get up.
They couldn't handle him. First half, Soufal and Bowen both got a yellow on Martinelli. They couldn't handle him. They could not handle him at all. And that's a great point. Listen, I want to come on to a couple of things, one of which is going to be the next few games. Before that, obviously, is going to be the transfer window, which could change our opinions on the next few games. But before I mention both of those, I want to quickly come into this Arsene Wenger thing, because Graham rightly said that Arsene Wenger was there. And I was in the concourse, and one of the lads who sits right by us, James Power, said, Arsene Wenger's here tonight. I said, you serious? He said, yeah, he's here tonight. Fair enough. Didn't hear, didn't see. And then Martinelli scored the second goal, and he was clapping on the screen. Yeah, apparently Josh and Stan Kroenke were both there as well. Josh and Stan Kroenke there and Wenger there. Strange one, because it kind of lifted the stadium when Arsene Wenger was there. Singing one Arsene Wenger for the first time since he left was a bit oddly, I can't lie, but it was good.
Yeah.
And I think he should feel welcome. Coming back after 22 years at the club, I think you've got to look and say fair play. Something's happening there. There's rumours of a statue. I don't know if there's more to it, though, and I wanted to get both your opinions on it quickly about potentially an ambassador role or some form of, being part of the club in some form. Graham, I'll start with you, then come back to Lee. What's your thoughts on this one, mate?
Well, I think he should be welcome back anytime he wants to come back. I don't know what, he's got his commitments with, is it FIFA? He's got a job with FIFA, hasn't he? So I don't know how that would restrict him in coming back in some sort of role at Arsenal Football Club. I think Mikel has already said that he's reached out to him. He wants him to be more involved. Be great if he came back and we actually pulled off a league win, wouldn't it, with him back there in the club. And I do think he merits a statue. And I think he's been not treated very well by the club. That's my opinion. And I would like to see him more involved. I would like to see him honoured for everything he did for the club for 22 years.
Lee?
I echo a little what Graham's saying there. I think he just showed a bit of class. He's come to Arsenal when things are on a high. He hasn't been there showing his face when it's been all bad, all doom and gloom. The actual place is buzzing there, and he came. And I'll tell you what was fantastic about him. He didn't come in like, "Oh, I'm here and everything. I'm going to the game." He just come in through quiet, sat there, just minding his own business, and then it come out and rightly so. And I think the fans were delighted that he was there. Listen, we've all criticised Arsene Wenger. We've all felt a bit of not pain, but frustration towards what he done towards the end of the season, at the end of his time and all that. But he was fantastic for I think for 15 years. People go on about, oh, he was great for the first 10 years. I thought he was fantastic to get that team, some of those teams in the top four. What he done was unbelievable. For me, I lost my support for Wenger in that season when Leicester won it, when he just went and bought Petr Cech. You know what I mean? I felt that was the time, But I remember, guys, coming out against bloody Birmingham in the League Cup final at Wembley, and people were going thinking, and I couldn't believe it at the time, leave it out, you know what I mean? It just had a bad thing. It was, if Fabregas would have played, I don't know if you remember, Fabregas got injured against Stoke in the midweek game, and if Fabregas plays in that game, we win that game comfortably. It just was one of those things, but in the end, he won a couple of trophies at the end, and it was just probably the wrong time. But listen, George Graham has been forgiven for managing Spurs and winning a trophy, not by everybody, but by the majority of the fan base, time's a good healer, guys. You know what I mean? Like, and I thought it was great to see him there. And I'm like Graham on this. Like, he should be welcome to come back anytime he wants. And really, what should happen is he says, "I'm coming to the game today. How many tickets you want, Arsenal? You know, like what meal do you want and all that. Like, it shouldn't have to be anything other than that, because I tell you what, he done a fantastic job for Arsenal in the whole at the end of it. Like, you know, and I know that there's Arsenal fans, a few of my mates still of you know, hanging on to the baggage. Let it go now, like, you know what I mean? And I thought it was a great thing to see him there. I don't think he'd take up a role at the club, but you know, he should have a statue. He should have probably a stand named after him, and at the end of it, because of what he's done. And there is always that little bit of guilt with me when everybody's singing his name, because I felt that he let me down. You know what I mean? I know that sounds bad, because I did back him for so long. Honestly, guys, you know what I mean? There was a time when Arsene Wenger, you know, if he said, "Look, you got to go and shoot your mum for you know," but Arsenal win the league in 2 years, I would have gone, "Where's the gun, Arsene?" You know what I mean? Like, I was he could have told me to do anything. I followed him and believed in him for more years than most. Hurts me that I didn't support him towards the end, but you know, that's how it was. So there's always a tinge with me, but I'm glad he got a good reception yesterday, and I'm pleased, and you know, long may can come to the Arsenal.
Listen, the way I see it is this: Arsene Wenger is the greatest manager Arsenal have ever had. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Statue, 100%, absolutely 100% for me. I wouldn't like him to take a role in the club that was allowing him to do what he did before. I think people forget how much power he had at Arsenal. And I don't think that he would take a role that didn't allow him to do that. If it was a role that allowed him to be an ambassador of the club, he might not be able to get involved as much. He might take something like that. If it was actually come and sit on the board with us, he won't be able to sit there and just watch people make decisions. He'll want to make them all. And I don't think that would be healthy, because I feel like we'd be taking a step backwards in that position. That might be harsh. People might think that's horrible. I think definitely learn from his experience. I mean, Mikel Arteta can learn a lot from him and already has. But I don't think sitting alongside him in the board or in the coaching staff would be the way forward for me. But 100% statue, legend, always will be, but needed to go. And let's hope that we're on to better things, but needed to be said. Let's talk about January transfer window, because it is going to lead us nicely to how I want to finish. Chaitanya, big up yourself, mate. Hope you're well. Thanks for the super chat. He says, big up, lads. Shakhtar seems to have rejected the Mudryk bid, 65 million. I don't think Arsenal will pay more than that. It seems like we might have another Vlahovic situation. Graham, David Ornstein tweeted earlier, apparently, I haven't seen this, so it could be absolute nonsense, but we are apparently in for Mudryk and João Felix. There are two players that we're looking at this January transfer window. No midfield mentioned, but there, of course, are rumours about Tielemans and Danilo, and some are talking about a summer move for Milinkovic-Savic. All rumours, absolute nonsense until they wear the Arsenal shirt, Graham, but very encouraging in terms of the positions that we need, which are certainly, in my opinion, strengthening the defensive midfield as a whole, and our forward front three. I think Mudryk is the one people are talking about. £40 million Fabrizio Romano has said has gone in with add-ons of another 20 million, but that apparently has been rejected, and the guy wants from Shakhtar apparently Jack Grealish money. I don't think we should be going down that road, because he's 21, unproven in this league, and let's remember that the Ukrainian league might be quite good, but Fred come from there at 55 million, and he weren't that good. That's my opinion. So, as much as Mudryk does look good, and I'm not saying he's going to be a Fred, I certainly do think it would be a risk if we start spending Pepe money on him. What's your thoughts on what we need in January, mate? And can you be excited by some of these names, Graham?
Well, I'm very excited about the names we're being linked with, and I think that just shows where we are now as a club. The fact that we're now top of the Premier League, the fact that the football we're playing, the fact that Mudryk is actually liking a goal on Instagram during a game, and the fact that he wants to come to the club fills me with great hope that some sort of deal can be done here. I think the fact they know he wants to go to Arsenal could be key. And I think the clubs need to meet in the middle. I think we can up the bid slightly. I've heard there's money there, but we're not going to pay silly money. And I think what Mikel would do is what he's always done. He's got his number one target, his number two target. I don't know who is. Well, we assume Mudryk is his number one target, don't we? So, and I think he would be a great addition to the team if we got him. I've watched him. You know, he's a bit better than Fred, mate. Let's be honest.
I hope so. No, I do like him. I really
know
like
you
him.
can't always get carried away with what you see on YouTube and that, but I think he looks quality. And I think, you know, if we could stretch a little bit further, maybe there's a deal to be done there. But it's good that we are being linked with Felix. I think the Tielemans deal is always being talked about as a possibility. I think the two areas of the team, if I look at what we need, I think we need, you know, and we're not addressing that, is possibly Partey. You know, we haven't got anyone to cover for Partey. I mean, El Nene's seen as the Partey replacement. So yeah, that's my take on it. But if we could get that Mudryk deal done, it'd be great.
Yeah, listen, I'm a big fan of what I see of Mudryk, and I do think you're right. Midfield is an option. Lee, when you see João Felix being linked, so you think perhaps that there is a forward that Arteta might like as well as Mudryk. But a lot of people are saying that if Mudryk comes in, it will allow for competition, of course, with Martinelli, Smith Rowe and Saka, but it will also allow for Martinelli to be playing down the middle as well. Do you see us going for both a forward and a winger, or do you think we'll look at maybe Mudryk and a midfielder coming in, bruv?
Well, I think we've got to get a midfield player in. I think at this moment in time, I'm going to be really honest. I think that the midfielder can wait to the end of the transfer window, maybe so much. I think it's important that they get the attacking options done quicker. I think get them done earlier. So, and it's not putting Martinelli out to the midfield to the mid centre forward. I think that what it does is it means that they can have a break. We've got 3 competitions coming back after the Christmas and the New Year. We've got like the Europa League starts again, which is still very, very important. You know, let's not make no bones about it. We can't just sort of like throw that away. But what we need in those games is where Graham made a great point earlier on that we could have rested players going into the Europa League when we knew we'd still get through either first or second, and we've done that, and we still got in the top spot. We can't do that when it gets nitty gritty. We're going to have top players in there, so that's when it's going to turn around. So you're going to play on a Thursday night, and then you've got a difficult game. I don't know where. It can be at home or whatever. You're going to need to freshen that front 3 up. So it's very, very. You can't go into those games playing these games. You know, and of course the FA Cup. You know, I don't want to see. I don't know about you guys. I don't want to see Martinelli, Saka, or Eddie playing at Oxford away in a couple of weeks' time. You know, but who are you going to have playing there? You know, and I don't want us throwing away the FA Cup like we have done in the last few years. You know what I mean? I still want us to be competitive in all games. And when if you're throwing away competitions, right, that tells you that the squad's not strong enough. So get the squad strong enough. And maybe in the past, Mikel was probably throwing it away to emphasise that point. But I'm telling you now, it comes to a stage now where I don't want us to be throwing away competitions no more. Like, you know, if we're going to be serious contenders we've got to contend and compete in every competition. I get it with the League Cup this year. It was a little bit of a fast thing, but you know, Manchester City are still in there, aren't they? Because why are they still in there? Because they've got a big, strong squad, you know, and that is what we've got to do if we're going to be challenging for Champions Leagues, and that's got to be the goal, boys. Not just being involved in this Champions League. It's great. Let's get back in the Champions League and go out in the group stages or go out in the last 16. We've got to be in there and then compete. So we're building gradually. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see us be like Nottingham Forest. Oh, we're in the Champions League. Oh, we're bringing 5 players this time. 1 or 2, 3 this time, right? You know, and then in the summer. So, and this is where the key comes. When you go into a summer transfer window and we all turn around and go, well, we only need 1 player. We only need this just to cover this, to cover that. At the minute, we need 3 or 4 to compete in all those competitions. But there's going to be a stage when we go, do you know what? We only need 1, and then we're nearly there. But in this moment in time, we're nowhere near it yet. You know what I mean? Because that's, you know, we actually went into that game against West Ham, guys, without a forward on the bench?
Marquinhos.
Is he really a forward?
Well, he's the only attacking player we had
Yes,
on the
he
bench.
was the only attacking one, yeah. And let's be honest, he's
No
nowhere
centre
near
forward though,
me.
is there?
No.
There's all wide players, and Vieira, Marquinhos. Lee's right. We need someone big time, and I think we'll do that. Graham, if we do that, and we get the players we want, I'm going to bring up this one for us to discuss as we close. Brighton, Newcastle, Tottenham, and Manchester United all to come. This will tell us if we can win the league. We need at least 10 out of 12 points. Awais Khan is saying. If we can get some players in, I think that's going to help with these games. But I do believe this is a very important season, part of the season, Graham. We haven't played Newcastle or Man City once yet, and they're two of the best teams in the league. Of course, we've got Newcastle at the home next after Brighton. So what's your thoughts with these games coming up, Graham? We're going to need some players, I think. But if we do the business in January, what's your thoughts going into these next few fixtures?
Well, as I've already said, I think they are massive, these games. I think it's too early to sort of like talk about league titles, Dan. I think it's all about sort of sustaining, taking every game as it comes and continuing momentum and pushing for as high up the league as we can. I think that these games will be crucial, telling us whether we can sort of like sustain a league title bid, if we want to call it that, you know. I think the home games against Newcastle, Man United, I think could win.
Oh, is that me or you? Or is that him gone?
I think he's gone there. That must be
he's
Owen,
gone.
isn't it? Yeah,
His Wi-Fi's gone. It lasted so long, bless him.
I'll carry on from what he was saying. I think I think what he was going to say there was those two games are key games because they're home. But also, what I will say that Manchester City have got a difficult January as well. They've got Tottenham away. They've got Manchester United in that run-in as well. So they've got some tough. And I think they've got Newcastle as well. I think, so I'm not so sure. I know they've got three difficult games.
Very tough run.
So they've got a tough run as well, So nothing's guaranteed. But what we need to do is win a couple of games. Those home games are key. Like Brighton, Brighton's going to be a difficult game. Let's be honest. That's going to be a tough game. But if we could get 3 points there, we then go into those games against Tottenham, Manchester United and Newcastle with a 5-point buffer. If we then beat Newcastle, it's still a 5-point buffer. And I agree with what Graham's saying there. I think we need to still be top of the league come the end of January. And whether it's 5 points, 2 points, 1 point or whatever, that's what we've got to do, And if we can beat Brighton and we can beat Newcastle, don't lose to them down the road.
Graham, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. The battery went on the laptop. Just quickly, I think home with I said the other day, Emirates is almost like a fortress to us. So I'd like to think we could win those two home games. I think the Newcastle game could be the harder of the two, actually. They defend really well, Newcastle. I could see that possibly being a draw, but I still think that we potentially should get over the line. I'd like to see us avoid defeat at Brighton. I think it's a game that I think we're capable of winning because they've just lost their key midfielder, Dan, I think, today. Trying to think of his name. Of the
Caicedo?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, so that's a big loss for them. So I think that, I think the way we're playing, I think we can win at Brighton. And I think if we can avoid defeat at Tottenham and beat Man United, if we can get 8-9 points out of 12, I'll be happy with that return.
Listen, I think you're both talking facts. I honestly believe that the best thing about this run of fixtures, albeit very hard, is that we've got games at home, which we have made, like Graham says, an absolute fortress. The Emirates is really horrible for people to come to at the moment. Not just because it's a big ground and it's a good place for Arsenal to play, but the way the fans have been, we have literally made it a horrible, horrible, horrible place for the opposition. And I think that's going to be key. I think Newcastle are going to come there. And the bad thing about Newcastle coming there, there's absolutely no pressure on them. They're not expected to win the league. They'll be happy to be in and around the top four. Arsenal have got to win that game if they've got any seriousness about them in terms of trying to pull away from the pack and keep up with what I believe are going to be the title winners probably at the end of it in Man City. If we want that not to be Man City and it's to be Arsenal, we've got to take 10 points out of these 12 points potential games for me. I don't mind I love beating Tottenham, but I don't mind taking a point and just don't lose. Yeah, just don't lose to those absolute scumbags, right? Let's just forget about that one. Take a point if we have to and move on and make sure we win the others. I think Graham's right about Brighton. I've actually been really, really impressed with De Zerbi. I think since Potter left, everyone expected Brighton to be a bit of a fall off, but they've been in and around Chelsea's points, and not far off the Liverpools of this world. So been playing well. Caicedo, McAllister, if he's still not back, that's going to be really good for our midfield against theirs. And I think that we might be able to get the 3 points. Newcastle, I think, could be a tricky one. I fancy us to beat Manchester United at home. I do. I've got to say, I know that we lost away. We were naive, but I think at home we've always done well against them at the Emirates. And then, of course, we've got Spurs, which I just mentioned. I think we should be able to beat them with their defence. Let's be honest. We should be able to crucify their defence. It looks awful. But form goes out the window. North London derby, horrible place to go. New stadium that they seem to absolutely love. And we'll obviously be getting PTSD from last year's result there. So I hope that we can look towards that 10 points mark and I'll be really comfortable. Listen, Lee, I think what you're saying is bang on, mate. I'll go one further. If we go into that Manchester City fixture on the 15th of February and we're still within touching distance of them, either like a point ahead of them, point behind them, whatever it be, I think it's game on. I really do. What I don't want is to lose a few of these, City pull away, and then all of a sudden we're going into that fixture knowing we have to win to be 3 points behind them or 6 points behind, whatever it's going to be. That's what I don't want. Then I'll start to think title might just be a bit too much for us. But I think with the right couple of players that we're linked with and the rumoured with, I think we've got a really good chance of having a very good season, Lee.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Listen, that's a game I'm looking forward to. I'm disappointed we didn't play it when we did because I fancied us to beat them at that stage. I'd love to have played them with Jesus in the team. But listen, that's what we've got to aim for. I think Graham's right. One game at a time, starting with Brighton. Let's get the 3 points there. And then we can dust ourselves down, recover quickly, and then see what we can do at Newcastle. Newcastle and Arsenal are the two teams at this moment in time. They've only lost one game each, so it's going to be a real big game. I mean, been very, very impressed with Newcastle. But if we could beat them, I think it would be then 10 points in front of them with a game in hand. Statement. A couple of little statement wins now, and if we can go to Tottenham and get the result there, wow, you know what I mean? Let's see. I'm not going to run ahead of myself on that. But for me, we've got a couple of real difficult games coming up now, Brighton and Newcastle, and also that FA Cup tie against Oxford in there as well. So that will be a very, very interesting starting 11 when that comes out to see what it'll be like. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of those signings in there. I think it's very, very important now. I've seen Liverpool bring in a player today. Chelsea are looking like to bring in. We need to bring in wherever it is. It needs to be done before I think. Whether he's on the bench at Newcastle or being paraded. One of the two.
Fair play. Listen, boys, we're going to wrap it up there. Graham, got to say a massive thank you to you, man. Thanks so much for jumping on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on again, mate.
Yeah, thanks, boys. And I really enjoyed it, as ever. Love talking to you two legends. Just leave on a light-hearted note. The Spurs joke of the day, doing the rounds on Twitter this morning. I don't know if you see it.
Go on.
My mate owns a pub. He's just got a signed 10x8 photo of Harry Kane. He put it over the bar.
Love it. Absolutely.
Get in there. Get in.
And just remember, boys, it's 16 World Cups now since they won a league title.
Is that all?
Anyway, lovely to talk to you again, and wish you both and all your subscribers on Lee Judges TV a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Graham.
I echo that. Cheers, Graham. Same to you. Happy New Year to you and your family as well.
Cheers, mate.
Absolutely. And that goes for you all in the chat. Absolute legends. Thank you all so much. There's still nearly 500 of you watching live. Fantastic stuff. Please make sure you smash a like on this video. Make sure you sub and try and get us as close as we can to 40K. That's what we're on the road to now. So please make sure you're a part of that journey. You'll be seeing a lot more content from myself and Lee. If you can also do myself a favor, that would be amazing. If you could go to Football's 12 Man Podcast, which is my channel, and smash a subscribe on that. I'm on my road to 7K. I'm trying to get there in time for the new year if I can, people. So please help me with that one. Lee, absolute pleasure, man. Have a wicked new year. I'll speak to you before it, but thanks so much.
No worries. And everybody, thank you for the support over the year. And thank you for supporting us and watching us and taking the time out to see us. And I just want to wish you all a very, very happy and prosperous new year.
Thank you very much. Guys, we're out of here. One last thing to say. Up the Arsenal. Take care, people. See you next time.